Hey guys, welcome back. A lot of you have turned in your assignment, but there's a lot of you that haven't. When I start this course and when I usually teach it face to face, this becomes a pretty controversial topic. A lot of people get angry in class, this is not a puzzle for you to just do. This paper is extremely important. You're going to be discussing something that criminologists from the beginning of time, since we've been discussing crime, have discussed, which is people do bad things. We all agree about that. We all agree that we need to do something about those people that do bad things. But why do they do bad things? Classical criminologists. Remember, when we talk about criminology are folks like myself that study human behavior and why people do bad things. When we talk about classical criminologists, if you're a classical criminologist, and I'm not here to tell you what you believe, that's your choice. But a classical criminologist really believes in this concept of free will. That people that do bad things out there to one another, that it was literally a moment before they did that event where they had this thought they could do the right thing or the wrong thing. They chose poorly and did the wrong thing. So when classical criminologists get together and they're trying to answer how do we control for bad people, they deal with it from the free will perspective, meaning and there's a lot of things at play here. A lot of judges that believe in this think that if you punish harder, more aggressively, we can reduce people's ability to choose poorly. If you're a positivist criminologist is a criminologist that believes that it's much more complicated than free will. This paper that you're going to read is going to bring you down that path to at least make you understand. And a lot of you won't agree with this. I understand that. I'm not trying to change the way you believe. But a positivist criminologist says a little bit more complicated than that. There's clearly psychological reasons that people decide to do crime. There are many people, whether they have schizophrenia, whether they have Down syndrome, whether they're limited by their ability to understand what is right and what is wrong. Psychological problem. We can all agree that there is a broad spectrum between this person understanding, don't do that, can't do that, and this person. So a positivist criminologist says not only the psychological things that affect people out there, but there are environmental reasons that people do things. A lot of people say, what do you mean by that? Well, I'll give you a good example. I have 2 children that I raised. Clearly, if I was placed into a position that I have no money and my children are starving, environmentally, is it really, when we talk about free will, do I really have a choice between stealing food to feed my children or not? I don't know. A lot of people say, well, yeah, you still have a choice to decide that. A lot of people would argue, no, you don't. One of the prime things that you need to do is take care of your children. And if you're given that scenario and I don't have any other means to feed my children, that's something that I must do, then I did it and I violated a crime, but I had no choice in the matter, that it wasn't a matter of choice. So again, we can have all kinds, thousands of different arguments about this concept. And then not only that, but sociological reasons. We have all kinds of different things, whether the environmental or sociological has to do with just children that are placed in dysfunctional families for whatever reason. They drew the bad ticket on mom and dad. Mom and dad just are horrible. They're just brutally physical and emotionally terrorizing these kids. And then we're shocked that these kids violate criminal laws later in life. When if we know this, a lot of your positivist criminologists say we need to remove those children from those dysfunctional homes quick, and we can stop them from going down that path. Otherwise, they basically are going to have no, and a lot of you will say, well, they still have the right to choose. Again, I wish you were here. I wish we could have this debate. Just like everything in this world, we're going to have people that have one side or the other. That's why you're reading the paper. I want you to give me your opinion on this. As we look at Chapter 1, you understand what a criminologist is, or criminology. This class is called criminal justice. I want you to understand, in my class, in Dan's class, justice means fairness. Probably going to be a test question, so write it down. Justice is a fancy word that attorneys came up with. It means nothing more than criminal fairness. Somebody has done something wrong in our society. We need to stop it from happening again. So we're going to do something to, whether it's punish, to keep it from happening. And as we look at this, and we're looking at it, folks, we're looking at it hard right now. Whether you like it or not, our criminal justice system has got a microscope on it right now, and we're going to be looking at everything that we do. And I want you to be asking yourself every time something comes up, was that fair? That's what I want you to ask. When you're looking at something, was that fair? Now, I'm going to warn you, this is not easy to do. And a lot of you are going to have strong opinions. And the first thing out of my mouth is going to be, have you ever been a victim of that particular crime? Have you ever been a victim of being pulled over by the police when you've been treated differently because of the color of your skin? We all have strong opinions, but I think your opinions are a little stronger when you've lived through something. So I wish you were here that you could tell me, this is what I lived through, rather than just saying, well, this is what I've been told to believe. In my upper division classes, I dig it out of you. I want to know, why do you believe that? Was that something taught to you by somebody you trusted, your dad, a clergy person? Or did you live through something, and did you have experiential learning because you went through this shit, and now I have this opinion because I went through it, and it was not fair? This course, I want you to be looking, even in your articles that you turn in, your newspaper articles, I want you to find topics that you think, this is fair, or this is not fair. That's what we're here for. So, go through the book, read the book, but remember, the book is not that good. It'll hit things like investigation and an arrest. This is a topic we can clearly discuss. Should cops be allowed to arrest people at the numbers that we do today? We're going to be looking at that. Right now, we have a system where a warrant, when we use the term warrant, that means a magistrate or a judge gave the police permission to arrest somebody or knock their door down and bust through the door. That a judge decided that. As we start to look at criminal justice today, will we take a lot of the arrest powers away from the cops and make the law enforcement go to a judge on the majority of what they do? I don't know. It's your world today. I'm retired. I'm old. I'm going to drink my beer, sit in my chair with my retirement. You've got a good opportunity to make your criminal justice system the way you want right now. That's up to you. A lot of you will say it's perfect. It's fine. Okay? A lot of you say, well, it's pretty messed up. Okay? Well, if you think it's messed up, then get off your ass and change it. I guess if you think it's fine, you don't have to do anything. That's up to you. I hope if nothing else, we dig some of these emotions out of you. It's pretty important. I can tell you story after story of my 25 years. I'm not going to. If at some point, if you do come to the grind, I had a couple of students that came, and you want my opinion, maybe at the grind when I'm not teaching a lecture, I'll give you an opinion on, yes, this is clearly something we need to fix because it's not fair. But I'll let you come to the grind to get my opinion. Right now, I just want you to have both sides. So we'll talk about that. Remember, booking is just a term we use. The process that we've arrested you and we're going through the process, get you into jail. Let's talk about bail. Put an asterisk. Bail is in our Constitution. Our founding fathers believed that, and we were afraid of it, quite honestly, that we would be held in a prison without being let out for a long period of time. So we put it in there that we wouldn't do that, or we shouldn't do that. But we do. Okay, you can't argue with me. You can. You'd be stupid. After you've spent 25 years in law enforcement, come back and then you can argue with me. But bail does, in fact, keep people in that don't have money. If you have money, a lot of money, you can bail out and wait till your trial goes on. You never have to stay. If you don't have shit, you have no money, you stay in jail. So what our founding fathers feared, we're doing, folks. It's a reality. Some states are saying, we got to get rid of bail. This is ridiculous. Is there a risk of people not showing up in court? Absolutely. You make that decision. If you're afraid everybody is not going to show up in court, then just hold them all. Build 20 more prisons. I don't know. You decide. But bail. Don't get into an argument with somebody. You'll look foolish if someone's saying that bail is a way that people that are poor stay in jail and rich people get out. Because they're right. It is exactly that. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to go through two quickly court appearances. Because as we discuss things, we're going to discuss it in detail as we get to the courts. But everybody keeps asking me, what happens after an arrest? The first time you go in front of a judge is called an arraignment. An arraignment. Put an asterisk. You're going to need to know this. An arraignment is this initial appearance. When someone's arrested for the first time, whether it's a mass shooter or it's whoever it is. Everybody wants to watch the news to see how crazy this person is. And so you like to see him being brought up. It's usually he's when I say that. Sorry, guys, but guys do most of the bad shit out there. It is what it is. So as we bring this person up, and a lot of times it's by camera, you see video. The reason we do an arraignment is, again, based on our Constitution. The person that we have just taken their freedom from has the right, in a very quick manner, to be told, do you understand why the state of Utah is holding you here? They need to understand why they've been arrested. We do that in the arraignment. The judge will then say, do you understand your rights? The rights per the Constitution. We're explaining them their rights. And then we're asking them, how do you wish to plea? We'll get into detail later just to understand a few more minor things. The judge at that time wants to make sure that you were a legitimate cop, investigator, detective that had the right to arrest somebody, and that your jurisdiction was appropriate. We'll talk about that as well. Second thing is a preliminary hearing. Preliminary hearing, write this down, asterisk. A preliminary hearing is I call it a mini trial. It's for the first time where I, as a detective, show up in front of a magistrate, a judge, and the defense, the defendant and the defense team now has the opportunity to confront me, ask me questions. Why do you think my person that I'm defending did this? We call this probable cause. This is one of those terms that you're going to need to know for the final. You need to know probable cause. I'm going to read it to you. Probable cause exists. Think of this as a living creature, like a biological creature. So let me back up. Probable cause exists when the facts and circumstances would warrant a prudent person in believing that a crime has been committed and the accused committed it. That's probable cause. It's not you think. It's not I guess. It's I have facts and I have circumstances that say I, based on facts and circumstances, believe that person did this. In a preliminary hearing, I'm showing everybody, it's kind of like playing poker, I'm showing you this is why I think this person did it. If the judge agrees with me, they bind them over, we call it an indictment, and we move to a real trial. If the judge thinks, I'm not going with that, that's pretty weak, I don't buy it, then they dismiss it and it never moves forward. The defendant that you arrested is released. Did I have people released during my 25 years? Absolutely. It's not a perfect system. I thought I had good facts or circumstances, but our system is designed that a judge will look at it and see if he agrees with me or she agrees with me or doesn't. If they don't, they dismiss it. The other way is based on an indictment on a grand jury. A grand jury came under a lot of fire during the Ferguson issue. Clearly, there's problems with the grand jury. We're going to talk about it. Grand juries were designed when we didn't trust the police department or the prosecuting attorney to not have a bias. So if a police officer is involved in something criminal, a politician is involved in something criminal, or just a police officer did use deadly force, took the life of somebody, we want a grand jury to look at this because we want a group of people that are not related to law enforcement at all to be brought into a room and we show them our probable cause. And see what regular people, when I gave you the definition, what normal people, we have fancy words in law, we call it prudent, but it's really nothing more than, do they think that this law that we have was violated by this person? Two problems with the grand jury, write these down. Number one, they were designed to be secretive. We wanted to protect witnesses. We've went after a lot of dangerous people in organized crime. We didn't want our witnesses to be stalked down and hurt. So what happens in a grand jury is secretive everywhere, almost every jurisdiction. Is this problematic? Absolutely. The citizens of Ferguson, when they were protesting in the streets, they just wanted to know what was happening inside there. We can't tell them. This is your world. Maybe it's time you change that. Again, just because that's the way it is today, that's why we call it criminal justice reform. Right now it's secretive. We don't allow the people in that room to talk about it, otherwise they can be arrested. That's how important this is. If they come out and talk to the news and tell what happened inside the building, they can be arrested. Second thing, which is why it's problematic, is the fact that when the preliminary hearing occurs, the defense can question me as the officer and arresting person. Why did you arrest this person? Tell me why you did this. In a grand jury, most grand juries are not allowed to question the witnesses. What happens is we present the case to the jury, this grand jury. Here's what happened. You decide. There's not this courtroom thing that you see on TV. They don't get to ask the cop why. So again, I don't know why. You know, if you want to know why this happened the way it did and why it got to this point, go to law school. But if you go to law school, I might not like you as much. I'm kidding. But really, those are the two problems. A lot of jurisdictions have changed it to where they do allow questioning of witnesses, but a lot of them have not. That's the problem with grand juries. So you understand arraignment, you understand preliminary hearing, you understand probable cause, indictment. What I want to talk about is sentencing, and we'll get to this later, specifically when we start talking about corrections. But when we talk about sentencing, after we've done a real trial and someone's sentenced, a judge or a magistrate can decide whether to stack charges. Rarely does somebody just do one bad thing. They stole a car, ran over 3 kids, went and kicked an old person in the head. So as this gets sentenced, if a judge really doesn't like you, if a judge doesn't like you and they have all the authority in sentencing, they can make it consecutive. Consecutive means I'm going to give you a year for each bad thing you did. In essence, you're going to do 3, 4, 5 years. The minute you get done with the year for kicking the baby, you're going to do a year for stealing the car. You're going to do a year. If a judge likes you and just thinks, I like you, and you can see where it's problematic. Not just the cops doing folks bad. You know, the cops are not just the things doing bad things out there. Our court system needs some repair as well. If they like you, they can run them concurrent. Concurrent means you did a lot of bad things. You did a lot of bad things, but we're going to start at the same time for all of them. So that means day 1 in prison, you're starting the clock for all of them. So you might only spend a year in jail or in prison, depending on whether the judge gave you consecutive or concurrent. Very controversial. We'll hit this later when we get to corrections. But before we leave chapter 1, here's what I want you to focus on moving forward. Because this is criminal fairness, criminal justice. You get to decide. This is your opinion. But I'm going to give you statistics. I love statistics. I love what's happening out there. You decide whether it's fair or not. Some of the latest statistics we got, and if you're concerned about this and you want to come to me, I'll show you where I got them. But 2018, when we look at black adults in the United States, they comprise about 12% of the U.S. population. 12%. What's the population of prisoners that are black adults? 34%. What's the population of white adults in our country? 64%. What's the population of white adults in prisons? 30%. I'll put it more clear. Of all the prisoners that are in our prisons in this country, and we have a lot, there's about 1,600 black adults per 100,000. 1,600. There's probably about 300 per 100,000 that are white. So when you look at those numbers, you're going to ask yourself one of two things. It ain't high school anymore. And I don't care how viral this goes. But you have to answer the question honestly, inside. Number 1, you can answer it. I think there's a difference based on the color of skin. And I think that based on that difference, people that have a darker color of skin do more violent crimes. They commit more crimes. Therefore, they deserve to be in prison at higher numbers. Or you look at this and say, I don't believe what I just said. So if I don't believe what I just said, why are people that are black getting arrested at nearly 6 times the rate of other people? Problematic, folks. So when we start to hear not fair, you answer that question. I gave you the numbers. You decide. Is this fair? And if you're like a lot of people out there that are saying, wait a minute, we need to stop. And I'm going to tell you right now, these numbers do look better than what they did 20 years ago. Much worse 20 years ago. We are doing a little bit better, but we can clearly see this is still very, very problematic. And I haven't even got to the juveniles. This is just based on adult populations. If we're talking about juvenile disproportionate arrest based on the color of skin, problematic. This is an area of concern. I think most of you are going to have to look at this. Right now, you're going to be forced to look at it. And when you have a debate, Understand the numbers. And when you go out there, talk about the numbers don't lie. I'll leave it at that. We might have a paper at some point discussing this, but it all depends on, and what we're seeing right now, and most of the focus is on officer discretion. What do we want cops to be doing on their free time? Nobody's going to argue that if something's happening bad to you, your sexual assault's happening, or something is happening, we want cops to come to that scene. But what do we want them to do when they're not being called? And that's a discussion we'll have later. I hope that I've got you a little uncomfortable. I think that you need to be uncomfortable. I wish you were face to face, because shit's just not going to change unless we are uncomfortable. Okay? And I'm not going to be ignorant and say just because I was a cop for 25 years that we don't need to change. We absolutely need to change a lot of things. So I'll leave it with you at that. Get your assignment done. I'll see you next time.